Bestie, my name's Saskia Amir. I'm your licensed esthetician mentor. If you're passionate about elevating the esteem of being a licensed esthetician, then you're in the right place. Before we get into today's video, please go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notifications bell so that you never miss an upload. And if you are new here, please feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments below because I love meeting my fellow Esties. Now, without further ado, today's topic is going to be all about how to deal with complications from the treatment room. That's right, we are talking about the dreaded topic of what do we do when a client has a reaction to a treatment. Well, I'm going to give you some tips because as a new SD in the treatment room, it can be very jarring if a client comes back to you and says, I have a reaction. So I'm hoping that these tips are going to be able to ease your nerves and help you get through a situation like that because baby, it's coming. It is bound to come. Unfortunately, it is very true. It's not something that you can control. It's not something that you can completely avoid. Somebody is going to have a reaction to something and I want you to be prepared to deal with it. Okay, so let's get into it. How do you deal with reactions from the treatment room? Well, honestly, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you cover your ass by having insurance. Even if you are an employee somewhere, you should still have your own insurance. Cover yourself because honestly, it's not when something happens that's not the moment for you to be searching for insurance. Legally speaking, before you're practicing, you should have insurance. However, some people kind of drag their feet about it. I'm telling you, do not do that. Make sure that you have insurance prior to practicing and even while you are in your training phase. Get insurance as soon as possible. Even if you're just graduated out of school and you're practicing on family and friends, make sure that you have insurance. You just never know. I personally went with ASCP. This is not sponsored by them, but I really do feel like they cover you very well. And it's basically high coverage for a low cost. I have the annual plan and I encourage you to do the same so you can save a little money. But yeah, they're an association that specifically cares for and looks out for skincare professionals. So that's the first place that I would look. Again, not sponsored, but it is something that I truly feel covers you. And sometimes it can be like feeling unknown where to go. And I know that they cover several states. I'm not sure. I can't tell you if they cover all 50 states. But if you're in the States, check out ASCP and see if they have insurance for you. If I can, I will leave a link down below just so that it's easy for you guys to find. But it's basically ASCP Skincare. Okay, now that we got the big piece of information out of the way in terms of prevention, the next preventative thing that you want to do is make sure that you have open communication and you've opened up those lines of comfortability with your clients. If you watched my previous video where we were talking about what we can automate as solo practitioners, basically one of them was to communicate and open lines of communication when it comes to follow-up with your client, because honestly, sometimes people just won't say anything if you don't ask. So if you're asking and you're getting feedback from your client, that's going to give you an opportunity to remedy it. And opening up those lines of communication can sometimes make it easier for people to tell you what's going on, especially when it comes to a negative thing. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. What do we do when we get that dreaded email, that dreaded text, that dreaded phone call saying that a client had a reaction to something? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is keep calm. Do not freak out. And if you're going to freak out with one of your colleagues, freak out with one of your team members, freak out with your mentor. Do not freak out with the client. Make sure that they know that you are calm and you feel like this is something that you guys can address together. Moving forward, whether it's something that you do for them personally, they can do for themselves, or something that you will outsource to a different professional to help them address. The next tip is to document everything. It makes a client see that you're taking the situation seriously, whether it's just a small bump on the cheek or something a lot larger like an infection, which honestly is a different topic of conversation, but make sure that you're documenting everything. If they send you a picture through text, if they send you or show you a picture when they come in for their next treatment, make sure that you're asking them to send it to you by email so that you can keep a record of it in their chart. The documentation of this kind of stuff is really important because it's also going to help you kind of track certain trends. If a client continuously has reactions after treatments and they're just like, I don't know what's happening, do you? It's going to help you kind of keep a log and see if there's any commonality commonalities between reactions. So it's going to be good for just overall maintenance, overall documentation purposes, and treatment of any reaction that happens after a client has an unpleasant experience. Okay, the next thing is to offer your clients a solution. Like I said, whether it's you who deals with it for them, have them deal with it at home on their own, or you send them to a professional that you trust to outsource that complication. Because sometimes, to be frank, the complications are outside of our scope of work, and we have to be honest enough with ourselves and our clients to send them to somebody else, like a dermatologist, who's able to help them address the situations at hand. And then once they're done seeing that professional, encourage them to come back and talk to you about what the professional in the other field was able to diagnose or discover for them. And then that way you're able to address the skin appropriately on your end too. I think this kind of goes without saying, but apologize. Let the client know that you're really sorry that they're experiencing this, and you're going to do everything that you can to help them kind of navigate the situation. So have a little bit of empathy. Do not get defensive. Okay, even if the client is defensive, do not counter with defense. Counter with empathy. That's going to be your saving grace for your business and for your relationship with that client. I think this one is really key. Set a reminder to follow up with the client a couple days or a week after you have this initial conversation with them, just to see how they're doing. I think clients really appreciate it when you actually follow up with them about something that they said. Do not wait for the client to reach out to you. Reach out to them and say, hey, I wanted to follow up on this situation. How are things going? They're either going to come back and say, oh, things are going so much better. Thank you so much for your recommendation. My skin is thriving. Or they're going to say, actually, things got worse. I ended up having to do X, Y, and Z, but thanks for checking in. I'll keep you posted. Either way, you're getting communication with the client, knowing what's happening, and really able to follow up on what the issue kind of developed into. Again, I feel like this needs to be its own tip. Refer the client to a dermatologist if it is outside of your scope of work. Do not be a hero. If you feel like it's not something, if it's very clear and you feel like it's something that you cannot address for them, make sure you send them to the appropriate professional. Do not be a hero. Again, documentation is going to help you with this. Try to narrow down and figure out where the issue is coming from. That way, if it's a specific ingredient or if it's a specific product, you're eliminating that from the treatment room altogether so that you're not having any mishaps with using that product or that ingredient on the client who is sensitive to it. Sometimes clients don't know what they're sensitive to, especially when it's a client that hasn't had facials before or, skin treatments before. Tread lightly, but also keep an eye to see if there's something that is a common trend. After the treatment, make sure that you give your client specific instructions on how to treat their skin appropriately so that there's no agitation or a mistake that causes a reaction. So for instance, if a client has a peel done, make sure that you're giving them specific instructions on how to treat their skin and address their skin moving forward or in the days to come so that there are no adverse reactions that happen post-treatment. So the next tip is to take before and after pictures. Before and after pictures can serve basically as a benchmark. It's not just for social media. It's really helpful to have before and after pictures so that your client and yourself can identify what was present on the skin to begin with. Sometimes things can become more apparent and more visible after a treatment, and it's not something that just popped up. It was actually already there. So taking before and after pictures can really help set a benchmark for where the skin is starting and help you and the client both see progress along the way. And not only progress, but changes in the skin along the way, whether it be positive or negative. Okay, this is a good one. This is a really good one. Make sure that you're preparing the client's expectations post-treatment. So for instance, if you do a detox mask on the client, make sure you let them know that it's possible for them to purge, right? So that if they have a big purge or a small purge, any kind of purge, they were made aware that this is something that can happen. And honestly, it just really, really de-escalates any freak out situation that might come from a treatment that is actually intended to do something, but they were unaware of it. So making the client aware of what could potentially happen in the next couple of days after getting a treatment really kind of saves the client any kind of shock factor when it comes to the skin basically reacting to having a treatment. And last but not least, if you made a mistake, just own up to it. It's so much better for the client to hear from you that you made a mistake than from them finding out on their own. It never goes well that way. Just make sure that you own up to it, you're honest, you're upfront, and you let them know how to deal with it. And honestly, how you're going to deal with it. It's a lot more detrimental when you're hiding the situation and not telling the client upfront what to expect. Okay, so those are all the tips that I can think of how to address treatment room complications post-treatment. If you're a seasoned esthetician and I didn't mention something that you feel like is burning good advice, make sure you leave it in the comments below and let your fellow esties know what you've experienced and what you feel would be helpful in situations like this. Alright, babe, that completes today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and share with your estie bestie. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe and click on the notifications bell so that you never miss another video. And feel free to go ahead and just browse through all of the other videos. I'm sure there's something that you're gonna like. If you have any questions or comments regarding today's topic, please go ahead and leave a comment down below. I always love chatting with you. And if you want to connect on other social platforms, I'm gonna leave the link in the description box too. All right, Estie, thank you so much for joining the Estie family. As usual, I will see you next time. Bye.